Hello everyone, I am from Cambridge Public School, your science teacher Shaheen. Students, nowadays whole world is suffering from coronavirus. So prevention is better than cure. We must have to stay at home, and as per the government's rule, we all have lockdown till 14th of April. So we all are getting bored at home. आप सभी घर पे बिल्कुल बोर हो चुके होंगे. काफ़ी दिनों से आपका पढ़ाई भी स्टॉप हो गया है, स्कूल नहीं जा रहे हो. इन सब को देखते हुए हम लोग आपके इस बोरिंग को दूर करने के लिए हमारे स्कूल के तरफ से हम सभी टीचर्स ने आप लोगों के लिए एक ऑनलाइन क्लासेस का अरेंजमेंट किया है, जिसमें हम सारे टीचर्स आप सभी को सारे सब्जेक्ट्स में सारे चैप्टर से रिलेटेड हर एक टॉपिक का डिस्कशन किया गया है. हर एक टॉपिक के बारे में बहुत ही अच्छे तरीके से उसमें एक्सप्लेनेशन किया गया है, ताकि अब घर बैठे इसका बेनिफिट ले सकें. क्योंकि ये लॉकडाउन 14 अप्रैल तक है, बीच में भी आगे एक्सटेंड कर सकता है. तो आप घर पे बोर ना हो और अपनी स्टडी को कंटिन्यू करते रहें. इसके लिए हम सभी टीचर्स की तरफ से आप लोगों को ये सारी फैसिलिटीज़ दी जा रही है, ताकि आप अपनी स्टडी को कंटिन्यू रखें और घर पे बोर भी नहीं हो. So students, you must take benefit from this. All the best. Welcome to tutorial class in Cambridge Public School. Students, today I am going to teach you science for class 8. Your first chapter is crop production and management. So first of all, see here introduction. Here in this chapter we will discuss about different crops, its production and their management. The different points which we will discuss are given below. First point is agriculture, next history of agriculture, then modern agriculture, after that crops and their classification, crops based on lifestyle, agriculture practices. In this you will study about plugging, the selection and sowing of seeds, manuring, weeding, the protection of crops, harvesting, threshing and winnowing, and storage. And at last we will study about animal husbandry. So students, one by one we will read about all topics. So your first topic is agriculture. As you know, agriculture is the science and art of cultivating plants and livestock. Agriculture was the key development in the rise of sedentary human civilization, whereby farming of domesticated species created food surpluses that enable people to live in cities. Now, history of agriculture. The history of agriculture began thousands of years ago. After gathering wild grains beginning at least 105,000 years ago, nascent farmers began to plant them around 11,500 years ago. Pigs, sheep, and cattle were domesticated over 10,000 years ago. Plants were independently cultivated in at least 11 regions of the world. Industrial agriculture based on large scale monoculture in the 20th century came to dominate agriculture output, though about 2 billion people is still dependent on subsistence agriculture into 21st. Now, modern agriculture. Modern agriculture is an evolving approach to agricultural innovations and farming practices that help farmers increase efficiency and reduce the number of natural resources like water, land, and energy necessary to meet the world's food, fuel, and fiber needs. The agribusiness intensive farming, organic farming, and sustainable agriculture are other names of modern agriculture. The land where plants are cultivated is known as field. Plants grown in large quantities in a field are known as crops or crops plant. Now, crops based on products obtained. First, cereals like wheat, rice, barley, corn, pulses, gram, peas, beans, vegetables like potato, brinjal, tomato, etc., Fruits like mango, apple, orange, etc. Nuts like walnuts, cashew, almond. Oilseeds like sunflower, mustard, groundnut. Sugar crops like sugarcane, sugar beet. Fiber crops like jute, cotton. Beverages like coffee, tea. Spices like black pepper, chili, ginger, etc. Now, crops based on season. The crops are of the following types depending upon the season in which they are grown. Your first crops is Kharif crops. The crops which are grown in the monsoon season in the month of June to September are known as Kharif crops. For example, maize, millet, and cotton. The seeds are sown at the beginning of the monsoon season and harvested at the end of the monsoon season, usually in the month of October to November. Such crops require a lot of water and hot water for proper growth. Next, Rabi crops. The name Rabi means spring, a word derived from Arabic. The crops that are grown in the winter season and are harvested in the spring, that is from the month of October to March, are called Rabi crops. Wheat, gram, and mustard are some of the Rabi crops. Various agricultural practices are carried out to produce new crop varieties. Such crops required a warm climate for the germination and maturation of seeds. They, however, required a cold climate for their growth. Now, crops based on life cycle. First one is annual. Annuals are plants that complete their life cycle in 1 year. They germinate, grow, bear fruits, and die off within an year. Generally, all herbs and plants belonging to the grass family exhibit this type of life cycle. Mustard, watermelon, corn, lettuce, wheat are a few examples of annual plants. Biennial. Biennial are plants that complete their life cycle in 2 years. They germinate, develop a root system, stem, and leaves in the first year. Later, in their second year, they yield flowers and bear fruits. A few herbs are also classified as biennial, including spinach. Along with spinach and other herbs, biennial also include carrot, cabbage, petunias, radish, onion, etc. Now, third, perennial. Perennial are plants which complete their life cycle in more than 2 years. Once they grow, they start to bear flowers, produce fruits, seeds, and the cycle continues for a longer period of time. They do not die after bearing fruits but renew their parts season after season. Along with a few shrubs, trees are also classified into perennials. For example, tomatoes, ginger, banana, mango, coconut, palm, banyan, etc. Agriculture practices. The task that a farmer carries out to cultivate crops are called agriculture practices. They are listed below. The preparation of soil. Soil is the natural medium in which plants grow. It is prepared for cultivation by plugging and leveling. Now, first, plugging. The process of loosening and turning of soil is called plugging. Plugging of fields is done by using an implement called plug. Plugs are made up of wood or iron and they have an iron tip for easy penetration into the soil. The plugs are pulled by tractor or a pair of blocks. Now plugging of soil. The loosening of soil by plugging is beneficial because the loose soil allows the plant roots to penetrate freely and deeply into the soil so that plants are held more firmly to the ground. The loose soil allows the roots of plants to breathe easily. The loose soil helps in the growth of worms and microbes present in the soil, who are friends of the farmer. It also uproots and buries weeds standing in the field. It brings the nutrient-rich soil to the top so that plants can use these nutrients. Student, you can see this farmer is just plugging the swale. In this picture you can see. Now leveling. The plugged swale is leveled by pressing it with a wooden leveler so that the top swale is not blown away by wind or drained off by water. The leveling of plugged swale is beneficial because the leveling of plugged field prevents the top fertile swale from being carried away by strong winds or washed away by rainwater. The leveling of plugged field helps in the uniform distribution of water in the fields during irrigation. The leveling of plugged fields help in preventing the loss of moisture. The leveling of plugged swale in the field is done by using an implement called leveler. It is a heavy wooden plank or an iron plank. Students, you can see in this picture, this farmer is leveling the field. Now, selection and sowing of seeds. This is the second step in crop production. Once the swale preparation is done, it is now time to sow the seeds. Sowing is the actual process of planting the seeds in the swale. The seeds that are sown have to be selected very carefully and have to be of high quality. Now the methods of sowing seeds. The various methods of sowing the seeds are sowing by hand and seed drill. Now sowing by hand. The scattering of seeds by hand is the simplest method of sowing seeds. This method is also called broadcasting. This is the most economical method that can be employed. However, the distribution of seeds is not uniform. It may result in clusters of seeds on the field. Next, seed drill. This is the modern methods of sowing seeds. It is better and more efficient method than sowing by hand. It is usually done by attaching iron drills to a tractor. Seed drills ensure that the seeds are planted at equal interval and at the correct depth in the swale. You can see this farmer is just sowing the seeds in this picture. Manuring. Plants require certain minerals called plant nutrients for proper growth. There are at least 16 nutrients required by plants. These nutrients classified into two groups. First, macronutrients. Second, micronutrients. Now we will see macronutrients. Elements such as carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, calcium, magnesium, and sulfur are called as they are required in large amount. Micronutrients. Elements such as iron, manganese, copper, boron, zinc, and chlorine are called micronutrients as they are required in smaller quantity. Now the difference between fertilizers and manures. Some differences between fertilizers and manures are: fertilizers are an inorganic chemical synthesized artificially, while manures are the combination of inorganic and organic substances obtained naturally by decomposing cattle excreta, plant litter, and human waste. Fertilizers can add only specific nutrients to the soil, whereas manures can provide many useful nutrients. Third, fertilizers cannot add humus to the soil, whereas manures can. Fertilizers are easy to transport, but manures is difficult to store and transport. Fertilizers cannot improve the texture of the soil, but manures can improve the texture of the soil. Now, this is the method of cultivation. When the land is cultivated for a long time, the nutrients in the soil are used up. There are several methods of replenishing the lost nutrients. First is fallowing. A piece of land that is normally used for farming but that is left with no crops on it for a season in order to let it recover its fertility. This is the fallowing. Second, crop rotation. It is the practice of growing a series of dissimilar or different types of crops in the same area in sequenced seasons. It is done so that the soil of farms is not used for only one set of nutrients. It helps in reducing soil erosion and increase soil fertility and crop. Now at last, multiple cropping. Multiple cropping or multi-cropping is the practice of sequentially growing two or more crops in the same piece of land during one growing season instead of just one crop. It is a form of polyculture. Mixed cropping is found in many agriculture traditions. Irrigation. You can see here irrigation, this side traditional irrigation, traditional method of irrigation, and one side the modern methods of irrigation. Traditional method of irrigation. It is also called the pulley system. It involves pulling up water from a well or other such sources to irrigate the land. This is a time consuming and labor intensive process, but it is very cost efficient. You can see in picture here, there are different types of traditional method of irrigation: Dhekli, chain pump, mode, rahat. Now, modern methods of irrigation. The two main methods of irrigation are sprinkler and drip or micro. Sprinkler irrigation applies water to soil by sprinkling or spraying water droplets from fixed or moving system. You can see in picture drip irrigation and sprinkler. Now it is the time for weeding. Weeding is an important control method practiced in many crops. The removal of weeds is useful because these unwanted plants compete with the crop of space, water and nutrients. Weeding also helps to loosen the soil. Water can infiltrate more rapidly and roots of the cultivated plants can develop in a better way. Some examples of weeds are Pantheum, Amaranthus, wild oats. This weeding is done with the help of some tools you can see here. Now your crops is ready for harvesting. What is harvesting? Harvesting is the process of gathering a ripe crop from the fields. Reaping is the cutting of grain or pulse for harvest, typically using a sickle or reaper. On smaller farms with minimal mechanization, harvesting is the most labor-intensive activity of the growing season. Threshing. Threshing is the process of loosening the eatable part of grain from the chaff to which it is attached. It is the step in grain preparation after reaping. Threshing does not remove the bran from the grain. Now, winnowing. Winnowing is a farming method developed by ancient people for separating grain from chaff. In its simplest form, it involves throwing the mixture into the air so that the wind blows away the lighter chaff. The heavier grains fall back down for recovery. This method is called wind grating. Now, storage is also necessary for the grains. So, storage of food grains. The food grains obtained by harvesting the crops are dried in the sunshine. Before storing to reduce their moisture content, it is necessary to prevent them from spoilage. The higher moisture content in food grains promotes the growth of fungus and molds on the stored grains, which damage them. What is animal husbandry? Animal husbandry is the branch of agriculture concerned with animals that are raised for meat, fiber, milk, eggs, or other products. It includes day-to-day care, selective breeding, and the raising of livestock. You can see in picture here. Now students, at last, exercise. You all will read this all carefully and answer this question in your notes copy. The first question is, what is agriculture? Second, what is crop rotation? Third, explain the natural methods by which lost nutrients can be replenished in the soil. Fourth, what is animal husbandry? 5. Why is farmland plugged before sowing seeds? 6. Explain the harvesting, threshing, and winnowing. 7. Write the name of some common weeds. 8. What are the differences between fertilizers and manures? 9. Explain the crops based on season. And at last 10. Write short notes on history of agriculture. You all will read properly this and give answer in your notes book now. Thank you. Stay home, stay safe, and keep your study on. That's all. Thank you.